I'm Wes Shank, the host of the Missouri Wind and Solar Podcast, coming to you from our store in Seymour, Missouri. We hope you'll enjoy our discussions on renewable energy and the products that make that possible. Thank you for downloading our podcast, and we hope you'll subscribe. Today it's just me and David. We're going to talk about cabling. We've been threatening to have this conversation for several weeks now, and while it's probably not the most exciting sounding subject, I know it's one of the most important.
Very important subject.
I know from what little bit I know, as being the uneducated one in the midst here, is that you can spend thousands of dollars and have a ton of awesome equipment, and you can screw it all up by having the wrong wire through here.
That's correct.
And like the worst thing you could do is go get the best house wire.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have marvelous, thick, fantastic, expensive copper house wire and screw it all up. So
right.
Why don't we start with the easy one, which is stranded versus solid? Let's just talk about what is stranded versus what's solid, because I know a lot of people who might be thinking about alternative energy may not even know what we're talking about, even in a wire difference. I mean, right. I know when I first started out, I mean, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I'm a deck builder. I'm a door fixer and all this.
Right. And
when I first started out, I had no clue why is some wire pokely when you cut it and ouch, that hurts, and then some is thick as your thumb and tough to build. So let's talk to me about that, David.
So stranded wire versus solid wire. AC current runs on the inside of the wire. It travels on the inside of the copper wire. So it is better for AC wiring so long as it's not so thick that you can't manipulate it. And so your smaller gauge wires, your 10s, your 12s, especially your real small gauge wire, your 18s and 20,
So just so we're clear there, so the higher the number, the
smaller. That's correct. So if you're into guns at all, it'd be just like your shotgun. I mean,
okay, I was about to say. Right, yeah. I was about to say for our folks.
Yeah, all folks that are no shotgun. That's right. The higher the. So yeah. So but then when you start getting down into the bigger cable, say the 8s and the 6s, a lot of times even in copper for house wiring, you're going to still find a stranded, because there again it gets so hard to manipulate. You can't make the turn that you need to
more
make.
Like a pole.
Right. It becomes
what
very
is
rigid.
It? What is a typical house wire?
Typical house wire is going to be number 12 or number 14 on your normal circuits. A lot of people, it depends on the service that you're using. If you're using a 15 amp plug, you can use 14 gauge wire and you won't overheat the wire, because that's the maximum of 15 amps.
And as we know in all things electrical, heat is our
enemy,
our friend. If we're trying to keep the cattle
right, if we're trying to keep the water, that's exactly right. So, but when you're talking about wire size, I mean, you don't want to overheat the wire, because that's when the jacket would melt. That's when you could have arcing through, to a stud or something of that nature, and that is bad. You don't want that. So,
and when we're talking about a solid wire, we're talking about just that. It's a solid piece of
copper wire. That's right. It's a solid piece of copper wire. So DC wire, so AC wiring travels great through it because it's solid and it runs on the inside of the line. So even on the larger gauge, like I just talked about, the 6 and the 8s and the 4s, they'll be stranded, but there'll be very few strands. They'll use still a bigger wire, and they'll strand it with maybe only 8 to 10 strands.
Okay.
Whereas on our wire, for DC purposes, all the voltage and amperage runs on the outside of the cable. So the more outside surface area I have, the better conductive I can travel easier.
The more throughput you got.
And more frequently and a higher efficiency than I can on a solid wire.
And when we talk about stranded, what I can't help but think of is even just in the civils, it's like speaker wire.
Right.
I mean,
it is stranded wire. Now we use what they call welding cable, which is
right.
And welding cable versus just typical stranded wire, I mean, welding cable will have 100 strands per millimeter, whereas and that is just a general basis statement, and whereas house wire would be 10 strands per millimeter.
Right.
So it is way more stranded
or your
wire.
car battery.
Right.
Car battery's another one. So
Right. That's right. Right. So stranded wire, DC, and there again, the car battery's that way because it's DC power. We're doing DC power. Anytime we're doing DC, we're doing stranded wire. So that's the two major differences. That's why we run. So like Wes has said earlier, you can spend thousands of dollars on our turbines and run solid wire to it, and you're just not going to get the performance that it's capable of having. It's having a Ford Mustang GT and then having
just put the wrong gas in it.
Put diesel fuel in it. It might run and it might not.
Oh, you're hurting me.
But it's not gonna be good in the end. I mean, really, it's just not gonna nothing's gonna work out on it for you. So.
But the thing is, and that's an important point to make. It will work.
It will work, but it just does not work. I mean, so a lot of people are. I'm not getting what this thing says it can do without giving it all the right components. It's like making cookies. You have all these ingredients, and you leave out the baking powder.
Well, or
still make cookies, but maybe they're not up to the standard of what they could be. So
well, or I am as you know, and if you guys saw pictures of me and McDarris, you would know I'm an amateur baker around here.
Yeah,
it's if you're a bread maker and
he is a good bread maker, by the way.
You don't use the right flour. I got flour in there. I bought flour off the shelf.
Right.
But my bread, you're confused.
Right.
Well, you didn't read and you got the wrong flour.
Yeah.
It's
you got
a
all
huge
purpose
difference.
instead of self-rising.
Yeah. You think that you've done it right, but you really haven't. And that's the thing about it is that you think you've got and you could buy. Well, you could spend a lot of money on. Of course, with copper wire now too.
That's exactly right.
Spend a ton of money on it and think you've done something really good.
And so that's what our guys are designing systems for everybody, and they put this wire in there, and the customer sees the cost of this wire. When you guys see the cost of this wire, you're saying, well, man, I've got wire laying around the house. We didn't put that specific wire in a quote because we thought that we was trying to make extra money. We put that specific wire in the quote because that's the wire that it takes to make maximum efficiency out of our products. And that's what we're always going to quote, is something that gives you maximum efficiency from our product that we're selling. I don't want to sell you the Ford Mustang GT and sell you 80 octane gas. I mean, I want to give you the good stuff so you can get the maximum performance out of it.
Or the wrong tires or
whatever. Right. Yeah, I don't want to put in a off-road tire when you're looking to go street racing, So that's right. So that's our big deal. And number two, another reason that we do it, Wes, is because we don't want to overheat wire. That's there again. I talked about that a little bit earlier. So here's an example. We have a consumer that purchased our products, and he just went online and bought them, which is great. We love for you to do that. And he bought a 700 watt 12 volt element, and then he also bought a solar panel to feed the battery, but he was feeding off a battery, so he was pulling 700 watts. Whereas off a solar panel, you might only pull the maximum wattage that you could, which may be only if you're producing 100 watt to 12 volt. You're only you're pulling it as 100 watts, but you would only be pulling around about 8 amps. So it wouldn't be a whole lot. But coming off a battery, that element is going to take exactly what it can, the maximum it can take from that battery, which would be 700 watts, which is equivalent almost about 60 amps is what this thing can push. Well, then he used a number 12 wire to hook that up. Well, a 12 wire is only rated at 20 amp maximum draw. Anything over that will start failure on the jacket of the wire.
He's going to create a light bulb.
And he was getting ready to create a big spark when the two met in the middle when they burned the jacket off. I mean, it was and in that he would have wound up ruining the battery is what would have eventually happened.
So now why would it ruin the battery?
Because your positive and negative would have came together, And I don't know if you've ever done that on a car battery, with just jumper cables. He would have had a set of jumper cables that he hooked together, and it would have just dead shorted back through the battery, and it would have hurt his cells. It would have destroyed his cells. So just in that, once we told him that, he went and got a number 6 gauge wire. He installed it. Everything works great. So just in doing that, wire size does make a big difference. It really does. I mean, there again, we're not telling you this stuff just because we want to upsell you. We're telling you this stuff because we want our products to work at their maximum efficiency.
So can you oversize your cable?
Not really. You really can't get too large. There again, I mean, cable is expensive. You just kind of want to be in that realm.
Well, so if you were in that case, then if you were looking at any sort of growth, you wouldn't want to go ahead.
That's right. It's
so
not if you're going to grow it. And in that situation, really wasn't much growing to go off of. But if you were going to grow it, if he was going to parallel another element on down the line, yes, he would have definitely needed to went with number 4 or number 2.
It'd been better to go ahead and buy that
right,
now.
and then he can parallel off and jump right over to the next element down the line, and because now he's going to be pulling 120 watts or amps, versus 60. So it could really, and that we've talked about that in the past. That's why when you start getting into the higher wattage things, that the higher voltage that you can go, it's easier and more cost efficient on a wiring to go with the higher voltage. If he would have went with the 700 watt 48 volt.
Okay. All right. We're gonna stop here again because I keep struggling with this.
Okay.
And I figure if I'm struggling with it,
that's right.
So maybe are some of our folks listening. 12, 24, and 48. Okay. The 48 is the most efficient.
Most efficient.
Because it takes the least number of turns to hop that up to
correct
110. Or if we're going to 240,
yeah. Right.
Either way.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line.
Now, but now the question comes back, and it's so fun because we can go, we wander off wherever we want to.
That's good.
We're wandering off to the same subject again. But the 12 volt is so popular because there's less. It's just less costly to get into it. Is that what it comes down to?
That's exactly right.
Because in that case, your batteries, you got less in your batteries to match.
That's right.
Because you only have to match your voltage to the 12 volt rather than the 48.
That's
correct.
Right? That's correct.
Did I finally?
You've got it.
Finally.
You got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I finally cracked it.
Right. So like this element, if he would have went in 48 volt, now here's the problem. Not the problem. There's no problem. Here's the flip side of the coin. If he'd have went in 48 volt, he would have only been pulling 15 amps through that. His number 12 wire, perfect. Runs it perfect. No issues.
Because 48 volts at 15 amps.
Right.
He's talking what 650. No, it's got to be.
Yeah, it's 48, and then a half of 48 is 240. So it's 720. He could run 720 watts, and it's a 700 watt element maximum. So he'd have been just a little under 15 amps. So he'd have been great. He could have used number 14 gauge wire and done that with. But he would have also, in turn, he would have saved money on the wiring. But now he's got to go buy 4 12 volt batteries.
Okay.
So there again, you came back around to do what you said a minute ago.
That's what Sam was talking about when we talked with him about his tiny house. He was doing math backwards into it. Right. And then also, you're talking about your inverters got to match.
Right.
And okay.
Voltage has got to match from the front to the end. I mean, it can't change. So
it's a dim bulb, but it's starting to glow a little bit brighter.
Besides the MPPT, the MPPT controller versus a PWM controller. So if I start out with 12 volt panels, and I want to charge a 12 volt battery, then I just need to get an inexpensive 12 volt PWM charge controller, and it's fine. But now if I have a 24 volt panel and I want to do a 12 volt battery, I need to go with an MPPT, because the MPPT will look at the battery voltage and it will change what it needs to charge the 12 volt battery off of a 24 up to 150 volt on most of them. They can convert it back down. Now here's a little bit of a trick. Now we've got off subject a little bit, But here's a little bit of a
Something
trick in
different for
MPPT. Most people, because of costing, of course, they'll take their big panels and they'll series them in series of 3. They stay under the 150 volt maximum that they can produce, and then they'll change them down to, say, 24 volt. That's the most common. They'll change them down to 24 volt. Well, changing 150 volt, just like I told you earlier, it's easier to go from 48 volt to 120 volt. Same thing happens on the other side. It's easier to change closer voltage. So if I would have went with 2 panels and been and 3 panels are going to be right at 120, and went with 80 volts and changed it to 24 volts, it's more efficient because I'm only having to step down. So I don't have super high amperage, which is little harder on the batteries at super high amperage. But there again, it's a cost effectiveness deal. It's all based back. Does the cost efficiency, does it weigh out in your end game? And most of the time it doesn't. So that's why, and most of the time we design panels 3 to a series on our classic 150s.
So when you talk about that though, I'm never one to just let a premise just walk past me and say, well, it's easier. It's what does that mean? So the closer we are to 48, if we're at 48 to go to 110, 220,
right?
What does that mean? That it's easier to what is?
Well, it's just basically you're having to convert energy. You're having to convert.
Let me ask you this: are we talking about loss of?
Right. We're talking about loss.
Loss.
I mean, the closer I am, the less loss I have. Same way we're going back to cable for a minute because that's what we're on here anyway. So if I take a cable and I run it out 150 foot.
Yeah, that's going to be my next is distance.
Yeah, and I run it out 150 foot out here through the field to my solar panels, and I was kind of on the verge of that's being the right size wire. Well, you've got to understand there's going to be voltage drop. There's going to be line loss as it's traveling that line. There's going to be some line loss, and the farther that you go, the more loss there's going to be if the line size was just kind of marginal to begin with. So anytime you're going to travel a longer distance, you're going to have to increase your wire size. Sometimes a big number. If you're talking big amps, you're talking big numbers that you have to increase wire size. Voltage travels super easy through the line. So when you look at the power lines that are running from the grid, running across the sky, and you think, well, that's no bigger than my thumb, and it's not. But it's running 720 to 1440 volts across it, and the transformer is in where it comes into your house and transforms the power from that.
Down.
That's exactly right. It steps it down, and so then when you enter your house, what they've done is step it down to 240 volt, but you still have the same amount of power coming out of it, so you have to use a big wire again because you have a lot more amperage. They've sent in 720 and you've converted it 3 times down, so their amperage really, boom, shot up, when they did that. So it's all about amperage. I mean, amperage is the main key in wire sizing. Almost any wire can hold 600 volts in it. I mean, it'll just travel 600 volts, no problem. It's just can the amperage is it going to have amperage loss? My home, for instance, when everything kicks on at the house at one time, when in the middle of the summer when the air conditioner kicks on, I bought the biggest wire I could, but I was just on the borderline of being too far away from the transformer. And when everything kicks on, you'll see a little bit of everything kind of weakens for just a second. Not much, just a second. You'll see that little bit of kick down, and that's voltage drop. That's line that. And really, what it's not so much voltage drop as it's amperage drop. It's pulling too many amps at one given time, is what it's doing. When it does that, it just there again. And so inverters would maybe do that. Generators do that a lot.
Yeah.
When you hook up something hard to a generator and you hear, I mean, there's that voltage. It's pulling it down. So it's and you'll see that a lot in generators.
So let's talk about distance.
Yeah.
Closer is always better.
Closer is better. The closer you can get to your
or better. Well, a better way of saying it maybe is closer is less expensive.
Closer is less expensive, and it's better. I mean, you don't have any chance of line voltage. I mean, everybody's going to call it voltage drop. You don't have any chance of voltage drop or amperage drop. It's not going to happen. There's going to be a lot of our customers out here. You're a do-it-yourselfer. You plug a 16 gauge extension cord in, and you run over here. It's a 100-footer, and you run over here in the yard. You're building a shed, and you run over here and you throw your 13 amp chop saw on it, and chop saw sounds weak. That doesn't sound like it has the power revving up. It doesn't. It doesn't have the power to run it. You're pulling way too many amps through that 16 gauge cord. You need to go to the hardware store and buy a 12 gauge cord. I mean, it's too much. So if you go back to that same receptacle, take the cord out, plug into the receptacle, runs like a champ, because it has the length cord on it that they truly want you to run on to begin with. And if you run something different, they needed you. The farther you go, the bigger you need to be on your cable size. Again, you have to give it the power that it needs, and it's hard on equipment. That's a very important thing that customers need to understand. It's hard on your equipment to not give it the power that it says it needs. So if you're not given that refrigerator, or especially if you buy one of our DC refrigerators, if you're not giving that the power that it needs, it's hard on a compressor to do that. I mean, it can really have major effects on a compressor over time.
You're shortening that lifespan.
You're shortening your lifespan of the product. That's right.
What else do we need to talk about with wiring? What are some other considerations?
Really just don't skimp out on wire. Don't let that be the fall of your system. Most people here, and most people that listen to our podcast that have bought products from us or are thinking about buying products, you're given from $200 to one of our turbines to $750, and to skimp out on wire and say, well, I'm just going to go buy a roll of house wire.
Well, that's just wrong. That's just wrong to begin with.
Right, and say
there's no house wire.
and say I'm going to save $50. You didn't save anything.
I think it's pretty safe to say, because I think I looked at one time, and I might be wrong. There's no wire that you're going to get from Home Depot.
No, that's right. There's not a wire. The only wire you can get from Home Depot that's going to work in anything is from the inverter once it creates AC power to the home, and that's fine. You can use on the AC side whatever you want to use. On the AC side of the inverter. Now, our turbines, remember, produce AC power, wild AC power. It still needs to be a stranded wire. On our 3-phase wiring is a little bit different than just regular AC wire. It's not one phase. It's not single phase. Stranded wire. We recommend the SJO cable. It's an outdoor rated cable, very flexible, easy to manipulate, easy to work with. It's just what we recommend. So when we make the recommendation, that's what we're going to tell you.
What about connections? Anything they need to be looking at
when you're doing a connection is just as important as anything else in the system. If you go get a crimp-on fitting and you just kind of put it on there and just give it a little squeeze and think that's good enough, I mean, soldering is by far the best. Not everybody knows how to solder. I'm one of those guys.
I learned how.
But
on YouTube.
It's definitely definitely. You'll find on all of our controllers now we solder. We just pretty much solder most connections.
It's not hard to do.
No,
it's not hard to do.
And just tighten it up. Be real careful on wiring. You need to really look at your jacket. If you see any kinds of break in the jacket or cuts in the jacket, you got to understand, if there's a cut in the wire, it's not traveling past that cut. It's stopping there. So, if you see a big kink in wire, you need to be very careful of that, because that internally it is structurally broke down that wire. I mean, if you kink a piece of wire, you would know what I'm meaning. It really.
And we don't mean a nice little loop or something.
Right, right. You can loop wire, but I'm talking a tight kink.
Bent.
Pulling around and bend it. In it. That's hard on wire. And another thing on wire that you want to try to keep from doing is you don't want to overlap wire, because there again, wire's running heat through it, and so if you get up on that upper end, if you're kind of marginal on your wire size to begin with, and it starts heating up, now you have two sources of heat in a very close proximity of each other, and if they melt through,
bad news.
You've got a fire. So I mean, if it's something that can just keep producing and doesn't have a breaker to kill it, Breakers most of the time would kill that, but if you're talking about something that doesn't have a breaker in it, it's going to sit there and arc until it can
fire bad.
That's
tree
right.
pretty. We don't need to even go there.
Fire bad. Electricity good, fire bad. So, but that's some of the major deals in wiring. Just don't, as you're looking to buy cable, we have some of the best prices on cable that I've ever. And I've been in it, and I've built. Going back to my building industry days, I've been in the building industry for over 20 years now. We sell as much cable through this company as I've seen sold through any company I ever worked at. And the reason why is we have some of the best prices on cable that you're going to find out on the market.
Yeah, well, and it kind of makes sense because you can go to Home Depot and get house wiring all day long, and there's not just a typical market in.
You're not going to
given town.
That's right. You're going to have to go to a specialty shop to get the cable that we sell.
In the quantity.
And the quantity we sell, and
that
so
you need. So.
And if you're buying a wind turbine from us, you've already got something shipping your way. Let us ship your cable too, because we know that the cable's in right. So when we talk about cable, when we have somebody call in and they have an issue with their turbine that it's not maybe producing what they think, the first thing we ask them. We see you didn't buy the cable from us. Can you send us a picture of your cable? 9 times out of 10, I see old 12 gauge Romex out there on the pole. Of course, that's the first thing we tell them. If you really want to see change, you're going to have to change this wire. 9 times out of 10, after that's done, we don't get a call back. It's fixed. It's over. So that fixes the problem.
It's amazing that such a
little thing, and it's. There again, it's minute dollars. I mean, because you're buying cable somewhere, one way or the other. You might as well buy the right stuff to start out with. There's just not in my feeble mind, there's just not a reason for not, doing it right. And I understand, most of the time there again it's costing, but you've got to buy it somewhere. You might as well buy it right the first time, because once you buy cable, most of you out there will know, you go to the Home Depot and buy cable and you open that package, you own that cable, no matter if it works for you or not. And it's not just important on our wind turbines. I know I keep pushing that. It's also important in solar as well.
Right.
Because
it's DC.
It's still DC. We're still DC power. So wind and solar both in the same instance, And, you talked about connections a little bit. Matt back in our shop, he's been on before with Wyatt. We have air crimpers. I mean, we don't skimp out. I mean, when we're building your cables here and we're putting the ends on them, I mean, we're not just going out there with a hammer and hitting them with it. I mean, we spent a lot of money, to make good cables.
There's a pneumatic crimper back there.
Yeah.
That looks like an Alabama snapping.
Yeah, it will snap your finger off. You put your finger in it. It is not
You'll be counting to 4.5 the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's right. Hand. It is not. It would not be easy on your finger if you put it in there. I guarantee it.
So when you're looking at the cabling, and all things, I'm the ShamWow pitch man. Buy it from us.
That's right.
Measure twice. Make sure you got the right quantity. We'll make sure you got the right sizing. We'll help you make sure you've got that, but we'll load you up with it. That's right. And if you buy that from us, that keeps me and David coming to you on the podcast too.
You bet.
All these type of good things. A great subject. I mean, it's the ugly sister of all the things that we do.
Right. That's right.
I mean, it's like.
It's the most common overlooked part of a system. I mean, it really is. They're like,
our next subject will be nails.
We can talk about nails
and screws.
but it's the most common overlooked system. I mean, it really is. But just don't skimp out. I mean, I won't say that enough times on here. And there again, we've got the best. We're going to have one of the best prices out there on the market. So, use us. We're willing to sell it to you. So, give us a call anytime. We'll be willing to sell it.
We'll be willing to sell anything. Trust
That's
me.
Right. That's right.
That's my line, man.
That's right. It's getting close here to Christmas. Kilowatt meters.
That's right.
Kilowatt meters.
Buy Dad a kilowatt meter.
That's right.
And
DC timers. There's all kinds of little things.
And some cable.
That's right. Call up, get a little starter system for for that guy that's got everything. If you've got a dad like I do, if he likes it, he goes and buys it. But there's things out there like this that my dad would interesting, but he just is scared to get into it. So get him a solar panel and he's probably got a battery laying around. Get him a solar panel, a little charge controller. Let him start.
Well, great, David. As always, appreciate it.
You bet.
Appreciate you guys, everybody. I hope you have a great Christmas. Feliz Navidad.
That's right.
Woo! I
Yes, Merry Christmas to all.
tried out all of my Spanish in one episode. We will. Sorry for being late this week. We were running a little bit late with the podcast, but that's always a threat with us. And we'll be coming back to you next week. And as always, check us out online. Subscribe to our podcast. Buy stuff from us so we can keep coming back and we can buy our kids Christmas presents. And David can buy me a Christmas present.
There you go. I like it.
And again, thanks for showing up, and we appreciate y'all very much.